Ladies and gentlemen, let me get your attention again, please. Our county attorney is on the way. He'd been stuck in traffic, and he's in town about 2 or 3 blocks away and should be here shortly. First of all, let me say that this is a joint meeting of law enforcement and the Planning and Zoning Committee. We will not be taking public comments unless one of the committees desires to do so. We will be in session, and we'll be discussing the business here concerning the business of each of those separate committees. Should a member of the committee want to get comments from the public, that committee can vote to go out of session, listen to those comments, go back in session. Then any type of action that needs to be taken can be taken at that time. So at this point, we'll open with the Planning and Zoning Committee going into session. And Mr. Jennings has some, I think he has some minutes. He said he had some minutes in the car to pass out. Let's see a show of hands, since voting is not going to be. Let's see a show of hands, planning and zoning people there. 1, 2. You're planning on 2, 4, 5. We have a quorum. Just a minute. We'll have the minutes in here and start into the update on it. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Kurtz, who's the chair of the Law Enforcement Committee, and let him bring his committee into session and then conduct some short amount of business there. Go ahead, Mr. Kurtz.
Sure. According to the notice, I'll call the Law Enforcement Committee in session, and we have some administrative work to take care of. All you all have the amendment in front of you. I'll let Chief Howe update us on it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, just really, we didn't have this ready at the last one because we didn't know what the total was, but there was 3 additional officers that were eligible for the state law enforcement supplement and for the training in service. So we are asking that you approve a increase in the revenue coming in, which is paid by the state, and an increase of it going back out in the line item. So total of $2,400, but it reflects 48. Increase coming in, increase going out.
Make a motion.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Let me make another short administrative announcement. All these microphones are hot all the time, and if anybody does speak, you need to go to that particular microphone. Let's stand in recess for 2 or 3 minutes till Mike Jennings gets here, and he can bring us up to speed on the legal actions been taken. So,
Law Enforcement Committee will stand in recess.
coming.
That's the revised.
Get your haircut?
Me too. No. Did they notify you? This one. Okay. Okay. That's what
Lance, what is that? Lance, what is that rate now for?
okay. It's only okay. Right. Okay.
So yes, that one is resolved. It's dead.
I think we got more coveralls than we ever had on the commission.
Ain't that the truth?
We never had that many of them.
We now have our county attorney present, and so Mike, if you'll scatter your papers out and get ready here. We'd like to kick this thing off with a prayer. Would you lead us in prayer, sir? Please.
Want to call back in session?
We ain't gone out, we're recessed.
Bow with me. Heavenly Father, we just thank you so much, the blessings of today, Father, the warmer weather, that we get the sense of spring, which we know that brings us closer to the day that we all live for, which is when you ascended into heaven, Father. And we just appreciate you so much for allowing us to conduct the county business under your name. It's in your son's name we pray, amen.
Amen. Mr. Attorney, you got minutes, and if you'll give us a briefing on where we stand, one on the court action and brief on the resolution, how you feel about it with it, please.
Law enforcement or planning and zoning or both?
Law enforcement.
How you doing? Hey, right now, I got caught in that traffic. Y'all fight that all the time, I ain't.
Two plans over him.
Huh?
Two plans over here.
Is there one hand?
They had no plans over too.
You on law enforcement?
Uh-huh.
I need to let you. You need? You got planning and zoning?
You do, yes, sir.
Mr. Scruggs, you law enforcement? Mr. Scruggs, you law enforcement? Both, you both? Chad, you law enforcement?
Yes, sir.
All right.
We all law enforcement down here.
Down here? All right. You get what you
Thanks,
needed
sir.
from me this morning?
I did. Yes, sir, thank you.
Call the Law Enforcement Committee back in session. If y'all want to review the minutes, and I'll accept the motion.
Make a motion.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion about the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Planning and zoning minutes have been posted.
Who made the law enforcement motion second?
Mr. Scruggs?
Chad Bernard.
All right. You done?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm sorry.
That's fine, not a problem. Planning and zoning, minutes, have they been read? Do I have a motion on that? Got a motion, and we got a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, Mr. County Attorney, you wanna kinda tell everybody where we are?
I will.
Please, and I'll share my conversation with, TDEC yesterday on our situation.
The lawsuit that, well, let me give you a little history. The lawsuit against the Global Vision Church and Pastor Locke was filed yesterday. We had met with their attorney back, Tom Brashear and I had met with the attorney on, I believe it was January 12th, somewhere right around in there, and we discussed, gave a 60-day period there for them to try to make some progress, try to resolve the issues that we had that subsequently formed the basis of the lawsuit. That did not get done within 60 days. So the lawsuit was filed yesterday. Tom Brashear is the plaintiff as the codes director here. The lawsuit discusses, it spells out our what we consider to be violations of the Wilson County zoning ordinance and also violations of the Wilson County stormwater ordinance. Now,
How many violations are in there? Several?
several, and there's stop work orders for both of those currently on the property. Now, let me say a couple of things here that may or may not be welcome to folks out there or folks sitting around this table. When the government is involved in a lawsuit, all of our business has to be done in the open. The people on the other side don't have to do that. They can get together with their lawyer and talk in private, and that's a disadvantage that I work at or any governmental lawyer works at. My advice to you tonight is to be very limited in what you say for two reasons. You got a gentleman there with a camera that's going to put you on TV tonight. Yep, and he's doing his job. Nope, not fussing. But y'all also voted in February to have every one of our committee meetings publicized, filmed. So the people that we have brought the lawsuit against are gonna be sitting down there right now watching what we're doing. And if they don't catch it this time, they can catch it when they run it 3 or 4 or 5 times later. So the things we say, we may have to answer for, or you may be asked about in depositions or as witnesses in the lawsuit if it actually goes to trial. So I've given you an overview of what the lawsuit is about. I prefer not to be any more specific about it than that.
What is your expectation on time and how long before that will go before circuit court and be tried?
Well, the case has been assigned to Judge Byrd. Once they are served with process.
Byrd? Judge Byrd?
Mhm. Once they have served with process, they have 30 days to file an answer for any type of responsive pleading. They have some other options available to them that I'm not going to spell out here tonight. If they haven't already thought of it, I don't want to give them the hint. I've got all I do hand on one side. But I would not expect any type of court coming to trial or anything for several months, perhaps even a year, just depending on how long discovery and that type of thing takes. So that's where we are. It was filed yesterday about 2:30, and I don't know whether Lance, or Robert, y'all know whether it's been served or not. I mean, that'd be mighty quick. Y'all do a great job. That'd be mighty quick if you got served in 24 hours.
I have one question. I don't think it's out of line. Does that mean he can still operate for that year?
Yes.
Still can?
Yes, we did not seek an injunction. There'll be some danger involved if you try to shut down even temporarily religious activities. There's quite a bit of protection under state and federal law for that.
I spoke with a lady at TDEC yesterday in Cookville, and she said that they had 8 complaints in 2022, and all either had been resolved or nothing was open now on any of those complaints, but there's a history there. So what does this committee need to do? Anything? Nothing?
Nothing on that lawsuit. I will, of course, keep y'all updated on it. And the way I will do that, of course, you call and talk to me, I'm gonna talk to you, no problem there. But I'll send you emails from time to time, but I'll label them as attorney-client privilege so that somebody can't make a public records request and get what we're discussing about. So I will caution you again, there's a lot of interest in this in the public. I know there's a lot of interest in it in the news media, as we all expected. And they love to disseminate the news, but let's don't make any more news than we have to, is what I'm saying.
Any questions or comments from planning and zoning or the county attorney? Mr. Curtis?
Any additional questions, law enforcement?
I don't have nothing there.
You want to address the resolution?
Mike,
Yes, sir.
your opinion, I know that you drafted a couple of resolutions as it relates to noise ordinance. And your opinion and where we are now and looking to move forward on a noise ordinance and the enforcement of such during the pending lawsuit, because some of the complaints in the lawsuit surrounded a noise complaint.
I will tell you that I made reference in the lawsuit a couple of places about noise, that I did not make a specific request for the judge to find them in violation of a noise ordinance simply because we don't have a noise ordinance. So I don't think it slows you down on proceeding on the noise ordinance if that's what you wish to do. The noise ordinance, again, let me give you a little history. I drafted one, I guess, about a year ago, maybe 18 months ago. And I took it from Anderson County and Knox County to find that lawyers work best when they copy somebody else's forms. And I I looked at what somebody had done in other counties, and I brought you one that was about 15 pages long. It was much too long in my opinion, but I brought it to you so you could weed out what you didn't want. The one that we have here, I was provided some information from noise ordinances from several cities, and that's not unusual. Cities, because we all live so much closer together in the city, you tend to find the noise ordinances there. Those noise ordinances, as I read through them, pretty much contain the same thing, just in different order, whatever is what the county said. So somebody back at one time drafted one, and everybody else jumped on the bandwagon. But I took that and I worked from it, took some things out of there and reduced it down. It's still a fairly lengthy ordinance, or regulation, I think is what I call it. See, counties don't work through ordinances, cities do, we work through resolutions. So, the state law that gives you the authority, in my opinion, to create a noise resolution has already been adopted by y'all back in December of 2021, I think. Yeah, I think I sent y'all that resolution as well. It had to be adopted by 2/3 vote, and it got 2/3. It needed 17, it got 17. You will read in there, and you'll read in the law that the, anything that comes out of that also has to be adopted by 2/3 vote. So any type of noise resolution you consider adopting, keep in mind it'll require 17 out of 25 votes.
Sheriff, I assume,
He wants to talk.
Doing that.
I think Tom wants to make a comment. Looks like you raise your hand, Tom?
I would like to address a couple of issues I see.
I'll make a comment on as written. It's a little more concise than the original, the first one that we've had. It doesn't include quite as encompassing, but it's still bulky, and in my opinion would be difficult for the sheriff's office to enforce on some levels, decibel levels, that type of thing. And I would like the committee to at least review and have another meeting to whittle down, to make it a little easier. If we're gonna move forward on something, at least to make it easier, to be able to put your finger on exactly what the violation is and how to address the violation, and for everybody to understand that it's not an end all, it's maybe a beginning, or maybe a Band-Aid, but then also where do we go? And my understanding, Mike, you would be the one that would have to go to court to prosecute this.
No,
Under the statute that I've read, I believe.
no, that would be, my understanding is the sheriff would issue a citation and the district attorney general will take that up.
So-
Now, there is a provision in there that allows you to seek injunctive relief as well. That would fall back to me.
I had a meeting with the district attorney, and he would pass that baton to you to prosecute. He would not prosecute this.
Is that right?
Yes.
He was talking about it wasn't in the green book, it didn't fall in his.
You sent an attorney general opinion, and I'll forward it all to you, but when I met with him,
You mean I can haul people in for violation of a noise ordinance if we pass one?
my
That might not be a
understanding
bad
that
thing.
to
I've got
be,
2 or 3 I might want to bring in.
I got to take them first.
Go what?
I think it's the
Yeah.
prosecution side
Yeah.
that the county attorney would have to take up
But
in our, because the only court that we have that could address this is our general sessions court of the county. And it's technically a civil violation, and the district attorney's office doesn't prosecute civil violations, is my understanding how General Lawson explained it to me.
Well, I have a great deal of respect for General Lawson and would certainly not want to get into an open debate with him, but I don't know that the county attorney has the authority to prosecute either. And prosecution, I think, falls with the proposal in the noise ordinance is a $500 fine. That's not civil, that's criminal.
Well, and that's another thing I think this body needs to discuss, because as you know, there's some implications.
Yeah,
When the fine's over $50, there's some other implications that come along with that.
there are, and let me say also, we worded that, the proposed noise ordinance, the one that's in front of you now, that if there's a violation now and another violation an hour later the same day, that's two separate violations. That will be interesting to see how the judge deals with that as well. But, now, I want to say, for you folks here, y'all, I work for y'all, whatever y'all tell me to do, I'm going to do the best of my ability, but I'm not sure I'm supposed to be in the prosecution side of it.
Can we get Tom, let Tom speak to this, and, because I think he will talk to it from the civil side, and then the sheriff from the criminal side. Tom, come on.
Approach the podium, or
Sir?
can I speak from here, or do I need?
Oh, yeah, that's fine, sure. Speak loud.
Okay, so I just started reading this probably yesterday, and I've not had a good chance to digest it all. It is fairly lengthy, even though it is more concise than probably the first version. But I had a couple of questions. Under special noise permits, section 11, the county office of planning and zoning shall, upon proper application, grant special permits for limited exceptions from the provisions of this section. I'm assuming that is a prescriptive permit, meaning they come in, they apply. I did not see any conditions for grant or denial of that application, so long as they hadn't violated the noise ordinance otherwise in some way. So I'm assuming if they come in and pay their fee and make the application, we've got to grant them that application for that special noise use permit.
That's the gist of what's in there. It probably needs to be fleshed out a little bit.
Okay.
As you call it.
In terms of the County Office of Planning and Zoning, I've got the Department of Development Services, and we've got several divisions under it at this point. What's formerly been called the Building Inspector's Office is kind of going by Codes and Zoning Division right now. Of course, I've got the Planning Department, and I've also got the Stormwater Office under Development Services. So you may want to flesh out specifically which counter you want that permit applied for, and if you choose to do this. I will tell you, I think I can speak for my Codes and Zoning Division that they've got plenty at their counter already. I don't really relish having to work at the planning counter, but that may be something you want to consider. The other question I had was more specific to what you're regulating and what you're accepting. And specifically, keeping in mind that we're a county government, we're not a city government, the only reference I saw anywhere to shooting or hunting or anything else was in clause 18 of the exceptions up above section 11. It says this section shall not apply to organized shooting clubs or ranges if established in accordance with Tennessee law. First of all, there's some questions I've got about what exactly that constitutes and where that falls within my zoning ordinance. Secondly, I think, just my personal opinion, you've got a lot of people out here that shoot on the weekends for recreation or hunt. I noticed no reference to either one of them. So as either being an exception or being something that you say, no, we want to be like a city and enforce non-discharge firearms. That's a big issue. Second Amendment always is. Second Amendment rights always is. And I just want you to be aware of what I've read thus far. And the county attorney can correct me if I've just overlooked it. But so far, I haven't seen anything that would keep us from being required, either the sheriff's office or my office, to say, hey, you can't be shooting on the weekend or something, the way this is written now. And that worries me.
I think you and the county attorney will have to flesh this out. And I don't, occasional shooting, To me, would this not be like a range of public business?
Yeah, you
Is
said
what you're
something there,
saying?
Jerry, let's talk about that.
'Cause
County attorneys, I'm gonna draft what y'all tell me to draft. This is not my ordinance, okay? This is y'all's ordinance. You tell me what you want, and I'll put it in there, but, and then on the section. If you decide you want that part taken out, I'll take it out. You say you want more meters, whatever. Tom and I will work together, to put more meters in. I do think you gotta tread lightly on yourself, remember. Very, very careful.
I think it goes back to Commissioner Kurt, so I think he said we need to sit down and kind of hash all these things out anyway, to kind of go through line per line, say yes, no, any changes we need to do.
Let's all remember, this is a
The
draft,
sheriff's
this
office-
is the beginning.
The
starting
sheriff's
point.
office has pointed out that it is actually referenced in section 4, paragraph 10, but it does appear that they're prohibiting it in any type of repetitive nature, right?
That's the way I understand it.
Hi, Sheriff.
Can I talk?
Sure, hi, Sheriff.
I got one.
Go ahead, go ahead.
One last thing, then I'll let you talk.
Go ahead.
The other thing is you gotta do, you do have First Amendment rights as well, which unfortunately gets into some of what maybe drove us to this in terms of free speech and, freedom of religion and everything else. I've got some very real concerns about how we would enforce any type of noise ordinance in those circumstances, but I'll close with that.
Sheriff?
Excuse me. First, yeah, we've looked on this for the past couple of days. Excuse me. And, let me say this first, okay? I told Commissioner McFarland this a week or two ago, last week. Again, there's a problem down here that we're dealing with. We dealt with it last night. But it's something that, you know, do we need to do something about how do we fix it? Yes. Will this fix it in a watered down form than what it is? Yeah, it could. I mean, I'll go down and write a ticket for them, but I don't know if it's gonna help. I will say this, but let me say something about this ordinance. This ordinance don't work, whatever works down there ain't gonna work for Terry Scruggs district, ain't gonna work for these rural districts. And, we've reviewed several of this, and when you go back to the firing of guns, it's section 4, number 10, and you see, I marked that whole paragraph out. It just needs to be marked out.
Which one was it again, Sheriff?
14.
Section
14.
4,
Yeah.
paragraph 10.
Loud, unnecessary, and unusual noise.
You got a problem taking that out? Bring that in the meeting?
And then I'll say this too. There's one paragraph in here that says, you know, you go by these decibel meters as far as this graph, you go there and measure the decibel, okay? It says if it's above this amount or above this amount, they're in violation. And then there, another paragraph up prior to this, it says, well, if it's not in that decibel level, you can still write a ticket. Which one? I mean, that's too much discretion there that I'm having to put my deputies in to figure out what's noise and what's not. But there's a whole paragraph that needs to be knocked out as it relates to a discretion of anything other than these decibel meters. Now, I go down there every day, and we've been doing these we bought decibel meters. And we'll continue to do that. But the decibel readings we're getting right now for that piece of property is averaging around 55 to 60. So would that be violating them under the decibel codes? And that's on the property. That's not at the property line. So there's some questions I got, but one size don't fit all here.
Answer your question.
And I'm not
Mr.
saying I'm
McFarland.
against it, okay? I'm not. But I'm saying one size don't fit all. We got commissioners from all across this county that this is not gonna work.
Well, that's scary when you say one size don't fit all, because then they were gonna start picking and choosing.
Yeah.
That's gonna be a big problem, in my opinion. I mean, you think about it.
That's the reason why I was very, very reluctant to pass one, because I'm not having the problem that's down there, you know, everywhere.
I think that was, if I recall correct, we kind of took a vote of confidence, this committee did before, about either moving forward or not. And I think that was the consensus of why we didn't want to move forward with it. Not because we don't want something to happen.
I got
Right.
a
stop it,
question.
But we
Whenever-
wanted to make sure that what we put into place, one, can stop noise wherever it is.
Right.
And not necessarily for a specific reason. I haven't had one noise complaint in my commission district in 5 years. So,
But my question, and without getting into the lawsuit and all of that stuff, is, okay, say we pass this, and you start writing tickets, then you keep writing tickets. We hadn't fixed any of the codes, so we're just gonna take you to court, and now we'll just sit on it for another year. See what I'm saying? It could take another year.
I think the difference here, though, I will admit that the lawsuit takes time to get in front of the judge.
Right, I mean,
This
I'm
would be a more immediate trip if that was allowed.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, we pass this, he writes a ticket, he pays the ticket.
Oh, I agree there.
The next day, I mean, it's $50 every time we go
Well,
out.
it's $500.
Okay,
But I
$500
wouldn't
for the,
suggest we
for a
do
me-
$500.
$500 for a mega church, he's just gonna keep paying it. It'll be somebody out there to pay it for him.
I
So,
wouldn't suggest we do an ordinance over $50 because there's too many implications when you get over 50.
well, somebody else is gonna get caught by this net. That's what's gonna happen.
Can I say something? For me, this isn't about one user, you know? Policy's supposed to dictate practice, not practice dictating policy. There's a lot of problems. You may not experience them when it's cold weather, but let me tell you, that more and more of this single-family residential in the west end of the county, and then now the middle of the county, is becoming rental property. It's becoming middle property to people that come to Nashville to celebrate weddings, and they're gonna leave after the weekend. They don't care how much noise they make. And if you're unfortunate enough to live in the area of this, it's hard to get your kids in bed when they're blaring their stereo to 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. It's tough. And I know if you live on the other end of the county, you may not experience any of it.
No,
Yet.
I'm not saying that though, Bobby. I'm with you. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying if you can make whatever, seems to me you can make whatever policy you want, and they're not gonna follow it. I'm saying they're just gonna pay the money and move on.
Well, and that's the same way with
So
speed
what's the
limits.
stiffer?
I guess everybody that came here today didn't go 1 mile an hour over 70. And I bet nobody rode in the left lane all the way down here either. But none of that got prosecuted. All I'm saying is what's gonna happen in any law that you pass is you get routine offenders, and that's what's gonna get attention, because that's what's disturbing the people. I mean, that's how every law works that I'm aware of. I mean, it's not just, and I think everybody's studying this thing like it's a test. You go 1 decibel over, then nobody's gonna, I mean, stuff's gonna keep happening in this county. I certainly foresee people hunting and people's cars backfiring and firecrackers being thrown around and cannons going off. I don't see any of that going away. I just don't. But I do hope that, and if you haven't experienced it yet, let me predict, the middle of Wilson County is getting this wave of growth. It's already past 109. All right, it's coming. And when it gets out to your neighborhood and you get some of these B&Bs and you get some of these wedding parties that go to 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, you might have a little different opinion about this. It's important. I mean, we're growing, urbanization, more people get together, they can't get along. People disturb each other, gotta live by rules. A lot of people that are moving here aren't like the country people that have been here forever. A lot of people don't think like people that's lived here for 50 years. They just don't. And so if you don't have law in the books, you can't do anything about it. You just gotta accept it. And then you get your calls, you tell your constituents, hey, get thicker windows. What am I? Anyway, I'll be quiet.
Well, we've talked about that in law enforcement, and most time if the sheriff and them get a call, typically they quieten it down, most of the time. So if somebody calls about that type of thing,
Most of the time.
most of the time, I mean, if somebody's got loud music and from what we've
I
discussed, I
think we
mean,
all as individual commissioners for individual districts, I think we need to realize this is a county problem, not necessarily a district problem. We
Right.
need to look at it like it affects the entire county, because as Bobby said, it's moving to the east, you know, where the population is not as dense as it is in the west, but it is in fact moving.
From the city.
Commission right there, got a
Range.
Mexican rodeo, I've got
in the county
candy
city.
shooter, y'all got loud
city,
church.
city ranges in the county.
I don't, what do we need to do? Let's just say got this workshop on what?
I think that'd be good.
What you say? We didn't hear you.
I was just saying that, I was just asking the other,
Yeah, I don't have a problem.
here, if we just take some time and flesh this thing out, you know, I mean, or have a workshop and look at it. We don't wanna offend any of the amendments of the Constitution. I don't. The sheriff's gotta know what he's gonna enforce. He's got to, you know, he's gotta do that. And I don't think you can stop anybody firing guns on their farms or whatever else, and we just need to make sure we get this thing as clean as possible, if we're going forward with it. If it may be something that the committee doesn't wanna go forward with, but at the same time, we have a county problem, we need to look at it like it's a county problem.
I think it works out, perfect idea, and whittle it down, and I'd like, as we look at the enforcement side, because we need something that can be enforced, and I think a decibel issue is gonna be very hard to enforce, because I would imagine there's gonna be some questions on, the same way we have with intoximeters or anything else, is it tuned, is it, yeah, are they trained to use it and all that, so.
My thinking is, you know, you can yell as loud as me you want to, but when it comes to the wall of my house, it comes, shut up. Comes to the wall of my house and gets, you know, where I can hear my own TV, and you're in my face then you ain't got no business in my face. So I guess the point I'm making is we have to have consideration for all these people that are getting, instead of a decibel meter, it may be, I don't know, complaint level or something. That maybe has to be
I understand.
another. I don't know what that threshold is. To me, a decibel meter would be the.
I think we have to have something that's enforceable, and then something that has teeth in it on the other side. Because if we don't, we can't put teeth into it.
Why did you say $50 instead of $500 burger? Is that
Because,
a law of your technicality?
well, the way the law views of anything over a $50 fine is,
Anything over a $50 fine has to be enforced by a judge that is elected by the general public. Some of your city judges are appointed by their city councils or whatever, and they are limited to $50 fines and that type of thing, so.
and there also could be some constitutional protections.
There is.
And based on over a $50 fine, it's looked at I don't know, a harsher fine or so.
When some of those laws were written back in the 1920s and 30s, $50 was a lot of money.
It was, it hadn't changed.
That's right, I'm saying they ain't these laws.
But it's,
So-
you're right, it's almost 100 years old.
So if we did go and pass this right here, then what would the fine be?
The way it's written, I believe it's $500 in here.
Okay, so second offense is 500, third offense is 500, fourth, fifth, sixth, on and on and on.
And I still think it's gotta be something that we get down and, like a committee and workshop, and figure everything out. Because obviously we can't do everything on the fly right now.
You know, you can't suspend a driver's license like you can not paying a speeding ticket, or, you know, that we can't, there's no.
Right, right. I mean, I
Right.
get it. I get it. I just think that's,
I'm probably the only one sitting up here. It's the odd man out that I chair one committee and I'm on another committee too. But I think a workshop with, probably with the county attorney or some expertise that you can find and bring in that might be something we want to do. If we're gonna create something, it needs to be a bucket that holds water.
Mr. Chairman, what would help me more than anything, any member of this committee or perhaps any county commission, if you will send me an email of what your concern is and what you want me to look at, I'll be glad to do that before we come back together again and see where we're gonna go. You know, the sheriff has mentioned some things. But to come up here and shoot from the hip, that's not going to be very good. But if you'll let me know what your particular concern or concerns are, then we'll take a look at it and see if we can work through it.
I got a question. It's just a question. Like if somebody, you know, like we've got some hot spots per se in the areas.
Yes.
Like my district, I don't have a whole lot of noise. per se, people calling. But like, is there something we could come up with maybe that like, I don't know, 250 people come up with a petition that is upset? Like when they built, like on the West Elementary several years ago, they started doing a bunch of blasting, caused a bunch of dust, rock. That whole subdivision was wearing me out about it. Like, you know, what can we do to stop this? So it was affecting all those people right there.
Sure.
So instead of putting something on everybody in this big county, is there something that we could come up with, like just say, I'm just using that school as an example. If 100 people got together and said, we got a problem, they're doing this, causing all this noise, trouble, whatever, is there something we could say, all right, we've got 100 people upset, we can go after them now?
Chad, I don't think you can classify it by the number of people or even the people working in a particular part of the county. It's gonna be, have to be across the board. What I think you could do is to limit your noise ordinance to say, there's only certain things that are gonna be violations of this.
Okay.
And in that situation, it might be if there's blasting going on and there's a petition presented or something, but you can't single out a particular.
Well, one thing I'm saying is, you know, obviously there's some serious problems that are affecting
Sure.
a lot of people in our area,
Yeah.
you know, wherever it's at.
Yeah.
So, you
we
know,
got some.
yeah, and it looks like, you know, instead of, kind of like back in school when you get in trouble, you know, one or two's causing trouble, but then it affects everybody.
Yeah,
You know.
I always heard that.
And just some of this reading here, you know, it's got like, you know, chainsaws,
Yeah.
skill saws. I mean, that's gonna be a problem.
And I'll go ahead and say, I've said this at a previous meeting too. Whatever we come out of here with, and if it gets adopted, we need to make sure that it is strong enough, plain enough, clear enough, that when the first case is brought in, we can win it. Because if the sheriff goes out and writes a citation and come in and we don't win the case, people out there are gonna say, it's kind of like evicting so far for not paying their rent. I've used this example before. If you don't evict them, and then somebody else comes in and says, you didn't evict him, so why you want to evict me?
Right.
We need to make sure, does there need to be some more work on this? Yes, there does. Will we solve everybody's problem? I doubt it. Will we, can we make it better? I think we can. Will it make everybody happy? I doubt that. There's not much we do that makes everybody happy. We'll try. That'll be the goal.
So what do we do, Mr. Chairman? Workshops, sessions, forward to the county attorney so he can research.
I like a workshop. And then after that workshop, we can give our input to the county attorney to maybe to create something. Because I think we all have different issues. In my district, I don't have any problems, right? But I'm adjacent to districts that do. Commissioner Bowman has issues with rodeos in her district, right? So we all have our different issues. And I think if we sit down in a workshop with the sheriff, with Mr. Bashir, and just go through some things and cut out some things, maybe we can come up with something and get some input with Mr. Jennings on something that's legal. And obviously the enforcement's a big question I have, and then the prosecution of it. We still have a major question there on who's going to prosecute.
We sure
something.
do.
So, but whatever it is, it needs to be solid, and maybe we can get there, maybe we can't, but hopefully we can get a workshop and put our heads together.
Well, right now, we're at the beginning. We're
Right.
not at the end.
Oh, yeah.
We need a lot of discussion, a lot of input,
Absolutely.
deletions, additions, that sort of thing, so.
Man, I think that's what Commissioner Dowell said a while ago. Your first offense violation, you get $500 fine. An hour later, you get another $500 fine. That's not a deterrent. What if down the road, first offense 500, your second offense is double, your third offense is double number 2. After a while, you're talking big money that would be a deterrent.
So we don't have the authority.
You don't have authority to do that.
We only go to 500 under the county policy.
If you did 500 3 times a week, that's $92,500 a year, so.
I've got a stock car.
Go to court.
Noah's off.
1 year.
Where are we going with this?
With top car,
Yeah,
you going to the races, aren't
what?
You're going to the races, aren't you?
Well, no, you work on them in your driveway or in your garage or barn, wherever.
A lot of questions.
Yeah.
I mean, the neighbors, I've never had a problem at my house, and I've worked on them in my driveway. I've had neighbors come over there and sit down and eat while I'm working on it, you know. So,
It is, you get losing tears, is it that noisy?
it is noisy, I'll tell you it's noisy. Anything you set a cup of coffee on that vibrates off, what is that? That's noisy, I'm telling
Well, you
you.
know, there's five senses, you know, taste, smell, hearing, seeing. Ted down there violates the seeing.
Where are we at, Kurtz? What are we doing?
It sounds like we'll adjourn today and we'll set up a time to workshop for everybody to get together and include or exclude what's in here and come to a decision on can we enforce it and if we want to pass it or not.
From planning and zoning, I think we're out of the picture. I think it's law enforcement, which we're all members of. The suit's been filed, and I think we're setting out to let go to coast or planning and zoning committee.
I think Commissioner Chandler said it best, you know, he'd like to see.
When we all work together,
Sure.
you know.
And I'd like to have the other commissioners involved as well, everyone to hear,
Absolutely.
because I don't know what happens in the east end of the county.
I don't know if the planning's out of it because Mr. Tom has got a lot of issues with,
Well, no, I don't have a lot of issues.
Not
with it.
issues,
I'm
but you
just
gotta-
saying- But I was pointing out a couple that I can see right. off the
Right.
bat. And then thirdly, the only active role I have in the ordinance seems to be ministerial. All I'm doing is taking paperwork. And then once we take that paperwork, we gotta hash out what happens with that paperwork, but I'm assuming we gotta notify law enforcement, hey, they're gonna have a special event this weekend. But beyond that, I don't see any enforcement on my side.
Is your thing about
I think there's a lot to still get hashed out, so but it has to come through the law enforcement committee first.
Right.
Well, even with the events in the city, hey, Tom, even with the events in the city, it goes through City Hall. They send it to the police department. They also send it to the other departments that may be affected
Affected by it, yeah.
by it, to have any input. If it's not gonna impact them, then they just put NA on it.
From that
And,
perspective, that's kind of ministerial.
but the one who approves it first is law enforcement. Since we're the ones that would have to, it's gonna be called out for it, that's, anything extra that's gonna happen, it's gonna fall on us. And so it may go through you, but you may have to forward it to the sheriff's department to let them say yes or no, or this is gonna cost me a lot of money on overtime. So we're gonna have to sit there and have them provide their own officers so it's a lot more.
I understand that.
It's a lot more than what we can talk about today without, like you
I
said.
understand though that that's sort of what the role is, where I don't see, and honestly it doesn't make sense, is where my offices would be responsible for enforcement.
Mhm.
The only enforcement we might be responsible for is if somebody did an event and didn't get a permit.
Well, right now, we're at a standstill anyway, because we don't know who's gonna prosecute.
But I do think we need to send out an email to every commissioner and say, hey, what issues do you have in your district? What's been going on? What kind of input can you give for our workshop? Again, this is not just picking on one person. We want everybody in our county to be able to sit there on the couch or whatever they're doing or in their backyard
And enjoy.
and enjoy life without feeling like they're being persecuted. And again, we want the entire county covered, but we also want to do it, we want to be able to manage it.
persecuted or bombarded by some outside
The
source?
sheriff was good enough to point out that I do have enforcement responsibilities during regular business hours.
I got them after hours.
We can get-
That's what I said.
we can get a line in your budget, give you overtime.
I think Attorney Jennings is gonna send out as presented tonight, to all county commissioners. To let them have it, then we'll have another joint meeting for workshop purposes, invite everybody to come, and open it up to where all county commissioners can kind of have speak, because they may be having different problems and they may have different ideas. For workshop purposes, then we could whittle something down and then come back together to decide if we want to pass it or not.
Can you ask that question also when you send it out about what issues each commissioner's
Yeah.
having?
I wish that if those sitting here and then those I send it to know something they want addressed, they send it to me before the workshop, so I can get an idea of how to deal with it or whatever. I think Commissioner Chandler's made a good point there about getting everybody involved, because the bottom line is, whatever you come out of these committees with, it's gonna take 17 votes. And look around this table right now, there's not 17. If every one of them supports it, it's gonna take more than it takes a super majority, so you might as well get everybody involved on the front end. In my opinion, I think that's what he was saying.
If we're gonna look to, we're all here, we might as well try to put a date together. And maybe 2 weeks.
We're gonna wait here,
Is that gonna give you enough time?
I'll do whatever y'all tell me to do.
I have a planning commission workshop on a matter that's coming eventually to the county commission the second week in April.
Yeah.
You know,
you got what?
2 weeks from tonight, is that
believe so.
the 13th?
Yeah, April 13th.
2 weeks from tonight is the night we have all our meetings for the county commission, 11 days for the county
Either
commission.
the 13th or the 15th, I believe.
13th, Thursday night.
Yeah, the following Thursday, there shouldn't be any meetings, correct? Unless there's something special.
I used to be able to predict them, William, but now.
It may be the
they
11th.
show up about every night of the week.
Tuesday the 11th.
Talking about the 20th? Thursday.
Yeah.
Most of the people
And the
that
week-
go to those meetings, we could do it directly after that.
Yeah,
You know, we're-
April 11th, we got a planning commission workshop.
We're usually
What time
done
is that?
6:15.
6 o'clock.
What's y'all's opinion on that?
Oh,
On the 13th, but after our
regular
No.
committee meeting?
regular committee meetings?
Pardon?
They're on the 6th.
Oh, they're on the 6th?
Folks,
Yeah, they are.
Mike, that's a difficult time to do, because once you have all these meetings, I have to go back that night and dictate all that stuff to be typed on Friday and go out on Monday.
Committee meeting's on the 6th, we meet on the 13th.
Well, that's what he's saying, he has a difficult time.
The 6th is when I'd have a
Oh,
difficult.
I'm talking,
Well,
if we-
If you need me there, I will not, there's a better than 50% chance I won't be there on Thursday the 6th. I've got some personal matters.
we're looking at the
Look at
13th
13th.
though.
Okay.
But
Sheriff,
do you
what
have
about
a
you?
meeting that night
I'll
too?
wait for the 6th.
No, April 11th, I've got a meeting.
Or the 20th?
Haskell, you need to come forth with the amendment on here.
Except second is at 9.
There's so many numbers being thrown around out there.
Could the 13th work, or do y'all
No,
suggest
I don't
something
Well,
else?
the sheriff, he said no.
I'll make it work. I'll make it work.
Diane? Okay.
My next meeting. Church meeting now.
At what time?
I say 5.
I,
Let our Mount Chula people be able to get back home at this hour.
That way all the others.
109. It'd be hard to get here though, won't it?
not too
A lot
bad.
of traffic.
Yeah, that's some drink to that.
And it is a workshop. We won't pass anything, we won't take any votes on
But
it.
it's not gonna be advertised.
Right. And then,
In here,
There may be a little conflict for me, but we'll review everything, but there won't be no action taken that.
there won't be
night.
any action taken at all.
I'll send my recommendations if I can't be.
I'm sure somebody will be in your stead, so,
we'll be in here.
yes, sir. 13th in here, and, send your recommendations ahead of time if you have any, which you would like to be taken out or put in to, Mike, and encourage the other commissioners to do the same. And we can talk about that at our committee meetings on the 6th as well. Does anybody on law enforcement committee have anything else?
Planning and zoning?
Have a motion to
Motion to
adjourn.
adjourn.
We have a motion.
Second, third, fourth.
Motion. Adjourned.
We adjourn.